Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. His Grace Suresvara Prabhu ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Welcome, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So good to be back with you all. And yes, Sambandha, Videya, Prayojana. This we're going to be launching right into the into lesson 8 of the series, which is the first lesson of the Prayojana section, which is deepening our love for Srila Prabhupada. Sambandha is deepening our relationship. Avideya is deepening our commitment to his mission. And Prayojana is deepening our love for him. That's practically how those three terms, Sanskrit terms, translate into this seminar series. So, okay, lesson 8, to love is to cooperate. And a bit of a warning, this lesson to me is the most challenging lesson in the whole series because, it's Kali Yuga and we're always being threatened by Kali Yuga to not cooperate. Giriraj Prabhu, I'm not seeing the square. Let's see, how do we get that back?
We can see, Prabhuji.
You can see, but I'm not seeing. Remember, I told you it was important for me to see the little box on the corner.
One second, Prabhuji. 1 second.
Okay.
I will.
So let me. Okay, now I just put my script down for a second. Now I see it, but let me put the script up. Then yeah, it didn't go. It didn't take. It seems like we always have trouble with this, getting the square in the corner. But I guess, anyway. Is there anything else? Is there anything more you can do there, or we just have to go forward?
What can you see, Prabhuji?
I just see my scripts.
Yes, Prabhu. You open the Zoom, Prabhu? Zoom window?
Yeah. Oh, now I see. Oh, okay. So that's all I have to do.
Yes.
Yeah, I see. But it's a little big. Let me see if I can.
And now, yes, Prabhuji.
It's covering part of my script. So how can I make that smaller?
You can, Prabhuji, from the Windows key on your keyboard, you press the Windows key and open your script page. It'll minimize automatically.
Oh.
Has it happened?
Well, I'm back to just looking at my script, but if I click on Zoom again, I see the box in the corner. By the way, I'm seeing the last slide in the series. We should be back to, the first slide.
Yes, Prabhuji. This one. Yes, Prabhu.
Right.
Yes. One second.
Wait a minute. Maybe I can make it smaller.
Yes, Prabhu. No.
No, I can't. I guess because it's your.
Yes, Prabhu. Now, because I stopped the screen sharing, you press the minimize button on the Zoom. There's a minimize button, right-hand side, top corner. The minus sign, minimize.
It's okay now. It's okay. I see.
So now you see, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see. This guy, I'm still, okay. There we go. Okay. Hare Krishna. So, lesson 8, to love is to cooperate. And now we go to slide 2. Oh, now stay on slide 1 for a minute because I should explain that, why I had that as the slide for to love is to cooperate. Well, that happens to be a image of the 1974 Rath Yatra, where the cart has stopped, as the cart often does during Rath Yatra by Lord Jagannath's will. And when the cart stopped, it's at that point in the parade. And by the way, this is San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, is the surroundings, very beautiful venue. Then Prabhupada just raised his arms and everybody was just going wild. And all those people on the cart with Prabhupada, they were all the leaders of the time. And they're very strong-minded personalities, and they didn't necessarily all get along, but they got along for the sake of cooperating to please Prabhupada. So that's why I put it up there. You don't know them. I know a lot of them personally. A lot of them have passed on, but that's what it takes to please Prabhupada is to cooperate, as we'll see in this mission. By May 1977, Srila Prabhupada's health had been declining for months. Okay, that's premature. Oh no, you're right. You're right. Sorry. Had been declining for months. It was time to return to Vrindavan, India, his home, as he called it, to recover or to depart. When his secretary suggested he make a will, Prabhupada agreed. And Prabhupada's secretary, as most of you probably know at that time, in the last year, was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. For 7 years, Srila Prabhupada had been training the members of ISKCON's Governing Body Commission, GBC, to manage the society after his departure. To help them feel the gravity of that responsibility, Prabhupada requested they all come to Vrindavan to witness the will. Because they love you, said his secretary, I'm sure they will all want to come and be with you. Prabhupada's reply was grave. Clicks. Yeah. So Tamal was saying, oh, I'm sure they'll come, Prabhupada. They love you so much. Prabhupada, he was very grave. Your quote, and you can see, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. Now that quote is famous. You probably have all heard it, but maybe you didn't know what prompted the quote. It was Tamal saying, oh yes, they love you. But Prabhupada was very grave about that. That was Prabhupada's, okay, your measure, how, if you really love me, will you cooperate? That has to be seen. Notwithstanding Prabhupada's request, cooperation can be elusive, hard to find. In our age of quarrel, to see why, as well as what we can do to foster cooperation, we will sample Prabhupada's words on the subject, which reveal a simple yet challenging dialectic. And dialectic is a fancy word. It simply means a line of reasoning. And Socrates kind of had the most famous Socratic dialectic: thesis, antithesis, synthesis, or point, counterpoint, resolution. So let's look at Prabhupada's dialectic of how we can find cooperation. Thesis, cooperate. Despite Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order that his leading disciples, quote, work conjointly, and quote, without any quarrel, those are direct quotes from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's final words to his disciples before he passed away. And work conjointly and without any quarrel after his demise, their non-cooperation fragmented the Gaudiya mission and later disqualified most of them from helping Prabhupada revive the mission in the West. Determined that non-cooperation not similarly spoil ISKCON, Prabhupada often defined and tested his disciples' devotion in terms of their willingness to work together. Quote, when you do something in cooperation with the Lord, that is called bhakti. That was way back in 1968. Prabhupada went so far as to define bhakti as when you do something cooperatively. And this is 1973, quote, the test of our actual dedication and sincerity to serve the spiritual master will be in this mutual cooperative spirit, to push on this movement and not make factions and deviate. Okay, so now, yeah, that's good slide. Good point for the slide. Now, this is an interesting slide because this is something else Prabhupada said. A little after he said that your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate to keep this institution together after I'm gone. He said something very similar just a week later. A week after he made this grave observation about cooperation in May 1977, Prabhupada made another observation, echoing the same point. Click. There we go. Very similar. Srila Prabhupada emphasized, quote, "Your love for me will be tested by how, after my departure, you maintain this institution. We have glamour, and people are feeling our weight. This should be maintained." It's kind of a curious word, glamour, Prabhupada used. He didn't mean, like Bollywood glamour. He meant prestige. We have glamour, we have prestige, and people are feeling our weight. This should be maintained. Okay, that's the thesis, cooperate. That was what Prabhupada said we have to do. Now, what's the counterpoint? What's the antithesis? Don't expect utopia. There you go. There's Prabhupada using the pointer finger of his left hand to make a point. I think he's in New Mayapur, France. There, it looks kind of like that. I've been there. It looks just like his personal quarters. Okay, so Prabhupada made that point, 77. Now, a couple of years after Prabhupada had formed the GBC, so Prabhupada formed the GBC on paper in July 70, the month I joined. And then a couple of years later, one of the GBC's members wrote Prabhupada to complain that impersonal dealings were dividing his colleagues. Yeah, this is a godbrother of mine named Acharya Rishi. He was on the GBC. And he said, they're always very rough with one another. They're dealing with each other so impersonally. And then that's what Acharya wrote to Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada wrote him back what became a very famous letter. And I'll quote you a little bit. Quote, "It is not so much that there may be some fault in our God brothers and God sisters, or because there may be some mismanagement or lack of cooperation, that this is due to being impersonalists? No. It is the nature of the living condition to always have some fault." So that's quite provocative. In other words, as long as people are alive and they're individuals, they're naturally going to have differences. And then, but we may wonder, because Prabhupada's saying that it's not due to being impersonalist, that there's always some fault. It's the symptom of being alive, that there's some disagreement. And then we might wonder, really, even in spiritual life? And then Prabhupada continues the letter. He says, "Even in the spiritual world, there is some fault and envy." Srila Prabhupada continued. Now that's really curious, because we thought, oh, we're going back to Godhead. There's no more hate and envy and everything's nice. And but Prabhupada says, even in the spiritual world, there is some fault and envy. And then he explains, "But it is not the same as material fault or material envy. It is transcendental because it is all based on Krishna." And then Prabhupada gives an example. "Sometimes when one devotee would serve Krishna very nicely, the others would say, 'Oh, she has done so nicely. Now, let me do better for pleasing Krishna.' And then Prabhupada says, that's envy, but it is transcendental without malice, without hate, without ill will. In the material world, when we get jealous of somebody, there's some part of us that wants to minimize that person or even cut the person down, or in the material world, people even kill people who excelled them. But Prabhupada says it's when in the spiritual world, when people see somebody's pleased Krishna, then they're jealous, but their response is not to cut the other person down, it's to do something even more wonderful. So Krishna will be even more pleased with them. So there's a ever increasing upward spiral, competition, ever increasing transcendental competition. That's envy without malice. Envy without malice. How wonderful. Another click. We're going to click in the, oh, Bill, before you click in the word, just withdraw the, okay. Yeah, that's good. You see below Prabhupada's image, it says, but don't expect utopia. And there is an example of Krishna and Balarama, a famous pastime. Krishna and Balarama are on the chariot, Akrura, a pure devotee of the Lord, who is circumstantially in the service of Kamsa, has come to take Krishna Balaram out of Vrindavan. Now he's a pure devotee of the Lord, but who is trying to block his way are the gopis. So wow, how is that? You know, pure devotee. I mean, they're not. It's like physical now. You know, they're saying, no way, you're going to take Krishna and Balaram out of Vrindavan. So don't expect utopia. It's not that everybody always agrees, even if they're pure devotees. Okay, click again. There we go. So Prabhupada continues. People should not expect that even in the Krishna consciousness society, there will be utopia. By the way, utopia literally means no place. No topos, place. There's no place where everything is always perfect and everybody always gets along. They're perfect in the material sense. Because devotees are persons, therefore, there will always be some lacking. Okay, slide. Yes. One more click. Yeah. But the difference is that their lackings have become transcendental because despite everything they may do, their topmost intention is to serve Krishna. Yeah. So even people's, so-called failings in the spiritual world are perfect because the intention behind whatever they do is to serve Krishna. That's such a beautiful understanding of transcendental nature and transcendental competition. So that's what Prabhupada is writing to Atreya Rishi. And then I say this, like a martial arts master using an opponent's negative energy to his advantage, Prabhupada then finished his point, challenging his disciple to see the positive. So Atreya had written, they're impersonalists, and that's why they're fighting all the time and they're treating each other so roughly. So Prabhupada he's now going to challenge Atreya to see the whole, how he's seeing. He's challenging him to see his God brothers in a different light. Quote, the devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet. Better than kings, all of them. So we should always remember that. And like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar or the best qualities of a person. Not like the utopians, who are like the flies, who always go to the open sores or find the faults in a person. And because they cannot find any utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without faults, they want to become void, merge, nothing. They think that is utopia, to become void of personality. So Prabhupada's challenging Atreya. Actually, maybe you're projecting what's in you. You're finding fault with them, and so why don't you see them in a different way? And then Prabhupada says, so if there are sometimes slight disagreements between devotees, and those disagreements, they weren't always very cool. Sometimes they were very heated, even to this day, right? Slight disagreements between devotees. It is not due to impersonalism, but it is because they are persons. And such disagreements should not be taken very seriously. So, Prabhupada was well aware of what was going on in the movement and how there was, because all his disciples were such neophytes that, with few exceptions, that he could have granted Atreya's point and tried to help him see things another way, but maybe a little more gently. But Prabhupada's just confronting him. He's saying, no, all of these people, all of them, they're better than kings. So look for the good qualities. Don't see the bad. Be more like the bumblebee and, less like the fly who's just seeing the faults. Okay, so Prabhupada's thesis is cooperate. His antithesis is don't expect utopia. So what's Prabhupada's synthesis? If Prabhupada's synthesis is to cooperate and his antithesis not to expect utopia, then what is his synthesis, his resolution? Well, as we might expect, it's easier said than done. Synthesis, find unity in diversity. So, can you get the words out there or not? Or is
Yes,
that just
yes, 1 second. I'm getting.
Okay. Okay, good. Whoop, there you go. Yeah, it's a little tricky sometimes, the way I had to do the PowerPoint settings. Okay, synthesis, resolution, you can say. Find unity in diversity. All right. So Prabhupada wrote his letter to Atreya in February 72. And then in October 73, Prabhupada wrote another letter, which became even more famous, on the similar point. When another GBC man wrote to inform Prabhupada of more dissension in the ranks, Prabhupada's response was philosophical and proactive. Quote, this is what Prabhupada wrote first. Material nature means dissension and disagreement. But for this Krishna consciousness movement, its success will depend on agreement, even though there are varieties of engagements. And by engagements there, Prabhupada means ways of looking at things and acting. In the material world, there are varieties, but there is no agreement. In the spiritual world, there are varieties, but there is agreement. In other words, okay, unquote. And then I say, in other words, since individuals have different ways of performing devotional service, the agreement that harmonizes, quote, the varieties of engagements is their shared purpose to please Krishna. Okay, click one more time. Click. Whoop, yeah. You got to go forward. Next slide. Yeah, okay, good. So Prabhupada says in his letter, quote, the materialist cannot come into agreement with varieties. But if we keep Krishna in the center, then there will be agreement in varieties. This is called unity in diversity. And then to illustrate that point, unity in diversity, Prabhupada would sometimes give the example of concentric circles. No matter how many circles we draw, if they all share the same center, they never clash. In the same way, even when differences arise, if pleasing Krishna is our shared intention, we'll at least be able to, quote, agree to disagree and continue working cooperatively to serve the Lord. And Prabhupada knew that this would be an ongoing challenge. Okay, click for the next words. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is the most famous part of the letter now. Quote, I am therefore suggesting that all our men meet in Mayapur every year during the birth anniversary of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. With all GBC and senior men present, we should discuss how to make unity in diversity, unquote. You know, it's a famous kind of slogan. It's easy to say, but hey, it's not so easy to find. Okay, slide. All right, good. So we should unite around principles, things that are just absolute. But what we have to do is diversify the details. We have to become intelligent enough to know how to apply those principles in different ways. This is Prabhupada, by the way, in Germany. Yeah. Since achieving unity and diversity is the key to cooperation, Prabhupada's measure of our love for him, we need to dig deeper and to understand how to find unity and diversity. However diverse we may be, if we trust our mutual intentions to please Guru and Krishna, we will be able to work together to identify timeless, universal principles whose details will vary according to, quote, country, time, and candidate. Prabhupada used that phrase a lot. Prabhupada explains, okay, click. Yeah, here's a famous purport excerpt. Quote, the teacher, Acharya, has to consider time, candidate, and country. What is possible in one country may not be possible in another. The Acharya's duty is to accept the essence of devotional service. Okay, another click. Yes. This is from the same purport. It is not necessary that the rules and regulations followed in India be exactly the same as those in Europe, America, and other Western countries. What is required is a special technique according to country, time, and candidate, unquote. And then I observe, of course, even if the Acharya's, quote, special technique proves effective for spreading Krishna consciousness, advanced devotees may still disagree on the details of applying principles. So even if we agree on, on things that can't be changed, principles, timeless principles, we may still disagree on how those principles are applied. Okay, another slide. Yeah, good. For example, while receiving a massage from his assistant one day, Prabhupada remarked, quote, my God brothers criticize me that I have allowed women to live in our temples. This is not done in India, but I have become successful because I made this adjustment. Click. Okay. So, in the silence that followed, by the way, this is Shruti Kirti Prabhu, who was assisting Prabhupada. In the silence that followed, his assistant, Shruti Kirti Prabhu, felt compelled to ask, Prabhupada, how can we tell the difference between making an adjustment and changing a principle? That's the question, right? Isn't that's what most of our disagreements are all about. Okay, next slide. Prabhupada closed his eyes and Shruti Kirti continued to rub his body. Finally, he opened his eyes and responded, that requires a little intelligence. Now that's like the understatement of the yuga, right? That requires a little intelligence. I mean, Prabhupada's own godbrothers didn't get it, didn't understand that what Swami Maharaj, as they called him, was doing in the West, that wasn't changing a principle. Prabhupada said, no, that requires a little intelligence. And then I say, a little intelligence and a lot of heart. Now that was in 72. In 74, when Prabhupada was translating the Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita, Prabhupada directly answers how to do this, or what it means to know how to keep a principle, but adjust it, apply it in an appropriate way. Prabhupada writes in his commentary to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 7, text 37. In that purport, Prabhupada describes the compassionate intent of such intelligence. Quote, an Acharya should devise a means by which people may somehow or other come to Krishna consciousness. First, they should become Krishna conscious, and all the prescribed rules and regulations may later gradually be introduced. Yeah, so Prabhupada he's following Srila Rupa Goswami, who famously said, Yena tena prakarena mana Krishna niveshayet sarve vidinishedha syore teoreva kinkaraha. Somehow or other, people should become Krishna conscious. That's the main thing. And then Rupa said, all the sarve vidhi, all the rules and regulations of Shastra should be maid servants. They should be subordinate to this highest principle of getting people to become Krishna conscious. That's the mood of Prabhupada. I mean, what was he to do? Deny all women in the world access to his mercy? Yeah, but Prabhupada knew that these Westerners, from the time they're toddlers, he was trying to explain this to his godbrothers in March of 72, when they all came, when many of them came for the groundbreaking of the Mayapur project. He said, when I went to the West, I saw that from the time they're toddlers, boys and girls are freely mixing. So you can't change a culture overnight. So what Prabhupada is saying is that better to have them serve together with of course, etiquette, certain Vaishnava etiquette. It wasn't a free-for-all. Prabhupada told us what was proper association. And it worked, because combined, the men and women who came to Prabhupada's shelter, we were able to do amazing things by Prabhupada's mercy together. So let's see. Now here's an example. Now I give an example of how Prabhupada, how he determined if something would work or not. Because Prabhupada said in that purport, he said, first they should become Krishna conscious, and all the prescribed rules and regulations may later be gradually introduced. So, for instance, in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Gaudiya mission, many devotees used to chant 64 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra on their beads. I always thought everybody did, but it was clarified later by Prabhupada in a conversation with Hari Shauri, where Prabhupada said that there were different quotas for different people. People who were not going out and preaching or were staying in the mutt to maintain the mutt, then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said their tapasya was to chant 64 rounds. That would purify them. For the people who were out all day preaching, it was 16. And also for people who were householders and busy with family and business, it was also 16. So Hari Shauri said, oh, then how did you were very busy, Srila Prabhupada, with your family and business. And so how did you chant your rounds? How did you find time to do that? So Prabhupada said, I would wake up, I would chant 4 on rising, and then I would eat 3 times during the day. And before I ate, I always chanted 4 more rounds. So you do the math there. It's 4 when he rose, 4 before breakfast, 4 before the midday meal, and before the evening snack, right? So that's 16. So Prabhupada said, I made sure, because if I didn't chant 4 rounds before my meals, I wouldn't eat. So that's a good way that Prabhupada did it. Yeah, he found the ways and means to chant his rounds even during his hectic householder years. Now, so Prabhupada said, many in the Gaudiya Math, they chanted 64 rounds. Now, despite Prabhupada suggesting fewer rounds to his first followers, and I'm thinking now of the time of initiation. You may remember back in lesson 1, the spiritual masters. The first initiation happened on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja day, but the day before, Prabhupada had the devotees, they called them Swamiji, of course. Swamiji had all the devotees. He said, now tomorrow we'll have initiation, and so they had them all go out and get beads. There were no beads, so they bought some beads at a little corner shop called Tandy's Bead Shop, just little wooden beads. Then he had them drill a hole in the beads, or maybe they were already drilled. I think they bought beads. Yeah, right, beads that had holes in them. But then they had them buy some strong cord, to string their beads. So they were stringing their beads. And then while they were stringing their beads, Prabhupada told them that, yes, many in my Guru Maharaj's Gaudiya Math, they chanted 64 rounds. But then Prabhupada said, but I think you can do 32. But they were all aghast, 32, 32 times 108 beads. Oh my God. And then Prabhupada said, all right, 25. He started, lowering it. And still they looked perplexed. That would take forever. Prabhupada could tell by the look in their eyes, they were getting discouraged. Then when Prabhupada saw that, then he said, Prabhupada then declared 16 rounds daily, the rock bottom minimum for his initiated disciples. Now, when one of those early initiates later asked Prabhupada, this is a couple of years later, this came out in Brahmananda's book, Swamiji. He was one of the first initiates. So he asked Swamiji, why had he asked them to chant so many rounds, then reduce the number? So Prabhupada's reply was very interesting. He said, Prabhupada replied that he was, quote, experimenting to see what the devotees could actually do. To determine a principle's practical application, Prabhupada would often try something out and then, quote, judge by the result. That was his famous Bengali saying, Palena parachiyate, judge by the result. And if things didn't work out, then Prabhupada would withdraw it. And I don't know if I've told you, but I was involved in 2 initiatives that Prabhupada sanctioned, and then he later stopped them because they became unfavorable. One was a transcendental rock opera that many of us were involved in, traveling to America and putting on a rock opera. It was a musical performance. And then it was in 1971, and then in 72. Then a few years later, we had a political party, the In God We Trust Party for Purified Leaders. And there's even recordings of Prabhupada bragging about his disciples preaching in the political arena. And Prabhupada let that go on too, but then the devotees got too carried away with it and they were neglecting their basic practices, and then Prabhupada stopped that. So he would often try something out and then judge by the result. Okay, slide. At one point, while instructing Sanatan Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped to marvel at his humble disciple. This is a verse. Quote, since you possess Lord Krishna's potency, you certainly know these things. So Sanatan is asking him questions. This is, Sanatan Shiksha in CC in Madhya chapter 19. Actually 20, yeah. The first chapter, 19 is Rupa, but 20 is the first chapter of Sanatan Shiksha. You certainly know these things. However, it is the nature of a sadhu to inquire. So Lord Chaitanya is marveling at his disciple. He's saying, you know these things, Sanatan, but you're inquiring. Although he knows these things, the sadhu inquires for the sake of strictness. What does that mean? Well, there was no purport to that verse, but later on, Prabhupada actually commented on that verse in New York a couple of years later. Prabhupada wrote no commentary to this text, but later spoke about it. Quote, a sadhu, a saintly person, although he knows everything, still he remains very humble and tries to confirm from the higher authorities. And this is how Prabhupada said, this is how the humble sadhu thinks. I think this is right. Is it not right? And then Prabhupada says, he knows it is all right, but still he waits for the higher authority to confirm it. And that's how isn't that, like, especially when some sadhu passes through our area, or say our Guru Maharaj comes to town. We think we know what we're talking about, but we want to hear someone we respect as more realized than us. We want to hear that person say. So, yeah. He waits for the higher authority to confirm it. And why does he do that? Because he's strict. He's strict in remembering his absolute smallness, strict in never presuming he knows everything. The humble devotee is always glad to hear deeper realizations from sincere devotees whom he regards as his prabhus or masters. Because he trusts the devotee's intentions, they trust his, and everyone is happy to cooperate with him, even if they sometimes disagree. So humility means it helps to find unity and diversity. It helps if we don't think we know everything, right? It helps if we don't think we're God, basically, because only God knows everything. So that's a good clue how to find unity and diversity. Okay, slide. In the Mahabharata, the model of the humble hero is King Yudhisthira and the arrogant fool, King Duryodhana. When they were mere youths, their martial arts guru, Dronacharya, gave each an assignment to test their character. To Yudhisthira, Drona commanded, quote, bring me someone less than you. And to Duryodhana, quote, bring me someone more than you. Now, even as the assignments were spoken, Duryodhana's mind was complaining. Why did Yudhisthira receive the easy task? How will I ever find anyone greater than me? That's typical Duryodhana mentality, right? So anyway, Drona, dismissed them from the ashram, and they all had their assignments. Duryodhana is not to come back until he finds somebody greater than him, and then Yudhisthira is not to come back until he finds somebody lesser than him. So later that day, Duryodhana fulfilled his own prophecy, right? How will I ever find anybody greater than me? By returning to his master alone. And Duryodhana said, I'm sorry, Guru Maharaj. I could not find anyone greater than me. Drona raised his eyebrows, but kept silent. So he really got an insight into his disciple's character by, what Duryodhana said, but he kept silent. Okay, so Duryodhana came back first. Now twilight came. So the day went on, and now it's starting to get dark. Twilight came, and still no Yudhisthira. Finally, at dusk, that time between where the sun goes down and then it gets completely dark. That's called dusk. Finally, at dusk, he returned, alone and disappointed. I'm sorry, Guru Maharaj. I looked high and low. Finally, I saw a man with some grain on a kadashi. I thought he was going to eat it, but then he fed it to his animal. So I gave up. How will I ever find anyone less than me? Drona smiled. So Drona was very pleased with Yudhishthira's attitude. Drona smiled, as we might too. But am I more like Yudhishthira or Duryodhana? Sanatan or Satan? If I think there is no one with whom I need to check by understanding, no authority higher than myself, then I need to give up the arrogance of Duryodhana and embrace the humility of Yudhishthira. Genuine humility enables us to appreciate and learn from all devotees and to cooperate with them to please Srila Prabhupada, Guru, and Krishna. So I'm going to give the last word on cooperation to Srila Prabhupada. And he spoke this in Mayapur in March. It's actually an audio. And you can go to the next slide. Keep it there. Unfortunately, the audio came with a very annoying buzz, which the archives has never been able to eliminate from the audio, even as the technology has gone on. They've been able to, make enough audio presentable through the advancing technology. But this, it must have just been built in. It must have been the way it was recorded. Anyway, it happened in 1976, and in the image there, Prabhupada is in Mayapur. And, well, actually, I'm not positively sure where he is, but then there's devotees, there's Prabhupada on a morning walk, and he's making a point, and the devotees are there listening to him. The actual situation in the quote I'm about to show is that Prabhupada has agreed to give darshan to all the devotees who won the previous year's, what we call the Christmas Marathon book distribution. And it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj's Radha Damodar traveling party. So it was like, it was like 100 people. I don't know how they all crowded into it. It was Prabhupada's quarters in the Lotus building in Mayapur. They must have been, head to toe, whatever. They must have been scrunched in Prabhupada's room and maybe hanging outside in the windows. So Prabhupada chose to speak to them about cooperation. It's very interesting. So more than a farewell request, Srila Prabhupada's desire that his followers cooperate to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere remains a perennial call to action. In March 1976, for example, in the holy land of Sri Mayapur, along the Ganges green expanse, Srila Prabhupada thanked his disciples for helping him spread Lord Chaitanya's movement for the benefit of suffering humanity. Okay, click. Yeah, good. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is God himself, Krishna himself. He felt alone, unable to do this task. He felt. Remember what, he had all these fruits to distribute of love of God, and he needed help doing it. He felt unable to do this task. He felt. So this is the position. You are cooperating. Therefore, I am getting the credit. Otherwise, alone, what could I do? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself wanted our cooperation. He is God, Krishna, and therefore, cooperation is a very important thing. Next. Yeah, okay. Nobody should think that I have got so great ability. I can do. No, it is simply by cooperation. We can do very big things. And Prabhupada quotes, united we stand, divided we fall. Sankirtan. Sankirtan means many combined together, chanting. That is Sankirtan. Otherwise, Kirtan. Sankirtan means many, many combined together. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. So it's so poignant that Prabhupada chose to speak to those book distributors who were pleasing him like anything by distributing more than any other group, any other team in the world then. But he chose to remind them about the importance of cooperation. Transition. Before we look at different ways to access and develop a personal loving relationship with Srila Prabhupada, in lesson 9, that's the next lesson, we'll examine and clear up some misunderstandings about him. I call the lesson, quote, fictional Prabhupads. It's really a lot of fun and it's heavy. So looking forward to that one. Okay, so I'll be very happy to hear your questions and comments now about the material in the lesson. So love is to cooperate.
Hare
Very
Krishna.
hard. Hare
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a important lesson for everybody in ISKCON. Like you say, Prabhuji, can you throw this light on again on then Prabhupada saying that, that what is meant by being personalist? Of course, we understand everybody has a nature, but to see that everybody is coming together for the pleasure of serving Prabhupada or Krishna, and how in the whole thing to help and serve devotees, where they can cultivate their own interest and blossom up, in Krishna consciousness, and still in the meantime keep them in a ring so as to be together.
Yeah. How to find unity and diversity, right? Because we're all different. Yeah. And even in the spiritual world, right?
Yes,
Radharani's got one mood, Chandravali's got another mood, Satyabhama and Dwarka's got another mood, and Krishna likes it all. He likes variety. Yeah. Well, that letter to Atreya was very telling, just try to see how all the devotees they're the best people in the world. So it really comes down to trust, as I was trying to mention. Even if I think that so-and-so Prabhu or so-and-so Mataji doesn't, is really making a wrong choice or a wrong decision, we have to trust each other's intentions. That everybody's really serious and sincere, that nobody's out to ruin the movement or ruin whatever, or ruin lives, or that it's not that people are demons in the Hare Krishna movement. Of course, the other side of that is, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that just because somebody wears neck beads and tilak, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily devotees. They could be Kali Chelas, and that happens. Anyway, that's kind of another seminar. But I think we have, as I in that story with Yudhishthira and Duryodhana and Drona, we have to look within first of all. Am I more like Duryodhana or Yudhishthira? Am I more like Sanatan or Satan? It starts with taking an inventory of ourselves and humbly finding fault in ourselves and not projecting our faults onto others as the utopians do. I'm getting a little stuck here. You want to maybe say something about your question again?
Yes, Prabhu. I just want to know that that how to help devotees, because everybody is in different nature, they have a different, so as to say, a taste in various services. So how to keep them in harmony and still see as a sangha that we are all together, but within that you give space to everybody, and how to help each one understand that each one of us has positives and negatives, and we must accept it and not feel why he or she can't improve, why that person can't see my point of view.
Yeah, well, again, we're not God, the only person we can change is ourselves. I mean, yeah. And, sometimes devotees, there might have been devotees who were very sincere, but they were so different that they couldn't get along, that Prabhupada had to separate them. Okay, look, you're good and you're good, but you're just so different. You just have to serve in different parts of the world because you just rub each other the wrong way. So sometimes unity and diversity means you just can't work together. And that's part of respecting Krishna's arrangement. That's why, you don't find necessarily, you don't find Radharani again hanging out with Chandravali. There's the left wing gopis and the right wing gopis. So, and Rupa Goswami touches on this too. He says in Nectar of Instruction how we have to honor devotees who's chanting the holy name. We have to, what is it? Nectar of Instruction, I'm forgetting the verse now, but there's different levels of devotees, and birds of a feather flock together. It's just natural. We're going to serve with devotees who are more like-minded. In fact, that's what Rupa Goswami enjoins. We should serve with devotees who are like-minded, meaning more advanced, but also whose perspective on serving Krishna we can acknowledge and surrender to.
You mean the Sajatiya verse, Prabhuji?
What is it?
You meant the Sajatiya verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu?
I'm talking about Nectar of Instruction.
Nectar of Instruction, you mean the Krishneti Yasya
Yeah.
Giritam Manasadriyeta, that one?
Hey, you have the translation in front of you?
Yes, Prabhuji. That one should mentally honor the devotees who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, Diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others.
There it is. That's somebody who's very advanced and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So, am I doing that? Am I like that? And even the one who just, is chanting Hare Krishna, we should mentally honor. The devotees, Haridas Thakur, he's honoring everybody, all living entities. Yeah. So that's the key to cooperation. But practically, I may not criticize others, but maybe I can't work with everybody. It's just the way Krishna expanded himself. Eko Bahusyam. He expanded himself in infinite living entities, and all living entities, they have different natures, even in the liberated state, what to speak of the conditioned state. And Krishna, again, he likes it all. He likes the variety. He likes infinite variety. So a good manager, for example, will know how to engage devotees in service that they like to do, and also with people that they can get along with. Otherwise, it's tough. It's tough to, it might be my tapasya, for example, to serve with somebody that I don't get along with. That would be very purifying, right? And that's why I had that first slide of the lesson. All those people, wow. If you knew those people, they were so sincere and so passionate about pleasing Prabhupada. But boy, a lot of those people didn't get along because they were they were passionate young Americans and, in recovery from Raja Tamagun and trying to follow Prabhupada. But in that shot, they were all happy. They were all together. They were all, why? Because Prabhupada was the focal point. So maybe there's another aspect of your answer. Prabhupada wants us to cooperate and at least enough to respect and honor each other as fellow devotees and not suspect that someone is secretly trying to sabotage the Hare Krishna movement because they don't see things like me. And again, that's not to be foolish because, the Kali Chela does infiltrate the movement, and that has to be exorcised, that has to be dispelled when that happens too. So that's all I have to say, maybe because I have to clean my heart more before I can give you a better answer.
No, thank you, Prabhuji.
Does anybody else in the congregation have anything else that they noticed?
Yes, true. There is one question from the chat. It has come. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for such nice session. Prabhuji, on the last slide, that on being humble, that sometime we think that we can help our spiritual master in so many ways. We can do this, I can do that. And we start bragging. And how to, in our enthusiasm, we start to do this. How to come out of such a habit?
Bragging, yeah, that's just the opposite of when if somebody praises a really sincere devotee, what would that devotee? Oh, Prabhupada's mercy. He'll just pass it on. He's transparent. Bragging means that I haven't even understood that I'm not the doer, that I've only been allowed to do this by Guru and Krishna. Why am I bragging? What do I have? We're all, borrowing, we have this phrase in English, borrowed plumes. We're all borrowing plumes from Krishna. Krishna says, I am the ability in man. So what can I do without Krishna allowing me to do it? Yeah, bragging. It's what is it? Dambo darpo bimanas cha krodha parashameva cha. It's a demoniac quality. Arrogance, pride, anger, conceit, harshness, and ignorance. Conceit, yeah. Strutting around, prancing like a peacock. Yeah. Well, so how was the question how to give up that tendency?
Yes, Ruji, how to come out of that tendency that in our innocence and over enthusiasm that we start bragging about our material qualities, which I may have, to our spiritual seniors,
Well, I can either learn the easy way, which is by hearing from Shastra about people who are so qualified, like Sanatana Goswami, right? He's asking questions, and Mahaprabhu loves his humility and just stops to marvel at him and says what he said. Or we can learn the hard way, because have you noticed, even, say you're with devotees and then you're talking amongst yourselves, and then somehow you turn the conversation in a way that it glorifies you, right? Instead of glorifying Guru and Krishna or glorifying another devotee, you just start subtly or grossly bragging. I do this and I do that. And well, the hard way is that as soon as I do that, you'll notice how the devotees suddenly have to go somewhere else because they don't want to be, no one likes that. It's obnoxious. If I don't get it, then pretty soon I won't have any friends, because I know that as soon as someone sees me, well, he's just going to want to talk about himself, right? It's the number one isolator. It'll kill your devotional creeper to just be like that, to be self-centered. It's all about Krishna. It's not about me. It's all about Guru and Krishna and the devotees. But when I'm too deluded, I think it's all about me. And that's what we bring. That's naturally, that's why we're in the material world. The spiritual life means to give that up and just transfer that tendency to glorify to Krishna. And as Krishna says, and when you have thus learned the truth, you will know that all living beings are but part of me. They're in me and our mind. We're just part and parcel of Krishna. So whatever we have, it comes from the Lord. So easy way is hearing. Hard way is losing all our friends. And usually it's a combination of both. Usually we have to learn by a combination of hearing and hard knocks. So let's learn the easy way and hear more and more and more. Yeah. So,
thank you, Prabhuji. Yes.
okay.
Usually, we see devotees are innocent. They don't know because, and then we try to bring our material, expertness into spiritual, and we think we got it, like that.
Well, we can bring whatever expertise we have, that's just our karma, and we've been awarded that by Krishna, but not realize that it's coming from Krishna, and that we think it comes from us. We've been allowed to, even like in the first canto, I think it's in the first canto, Prabhupada, he mentions Christopher Columbus, who discovered America. And Prabhupada said it's because of some piety in his previous life. He was credited with discovering America. Actually, number one, Christopher Columbus didn't even get as far as the American mainland. He got as far as the Bahamas on his first voyage in 1492. And later on, it's come out, part of it, this is residual karma, it's come out what a rogue Christopher Columbus was. He was enslaving the people he met on these voyages, these simple people he met on these islands. He was enslaving people in the Bahamas, what we know as the Bahamas now, and also in the West Indies. He was murdering them, he was enslaving them. So anyway, yeah, we shouldn't be proud. We should just recognize where everything's coming from, and we should be enthusiastic, but not enthusiastic to make me the center, but to make Guru and Krishna the center, and be transparent. Okay, it looks like it's time. So yeah, we'll figure out when we're going to meet again. Thank you, Neha Jindal. Thank you, Prabhu, so much for this wonderful session. Well, if I'm a devotee, I will pass it on to Prabhupada and not think it was me, right? And that's certainly the case. So it's really fun, the next session. Fictional Prabhupads, illusory, imaginary, wrong conceptions of Prabhupada. We have to clear the decks, because we all of us are more or less suffering from that too. We have these misunderstandings about Prabhupada. So before we can deeply enter into a relationship with Prabhupada, that's the last lesson, your Srila Prabhupada, that's lesson 10. We have to rid ourselves of impersonal and sentimental misconceptions about his divine grace. So that'll be coming up. Thank you for your kind attention.
Hare Krishna.
And,
thank you so very much. It was such a nice topic, and so easily you explained these topics to us, Prabhuji. We are so very grateful to you. So we heartily thank Prabhuji by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. His Grace Suresvara Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. We'll see you next month, Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.